Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, and most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. I mean, one of my nicknames growing up was Paul Wall. I've been called Paul Wall since Paul Wall came out with a mixtape. And I've been out here doing comedy for the last decade or so, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out in Los Angeles. You start absent-mindedly calling it The 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating. As a diehard long-term fan of your Houston Astros and other Houston sports teams, here we aren't the doom and gloom casual fans ready to get angry at a drop of a hat about everything in sports, casually just being angry at every player and coach. Nor are we the national media haters, or let's be honest, sometimes avoiders. We're not trying to take down the team or, avoid the big news they're doing here. We love to discuss our teams and root them on, but also want to try to discuss the ins and outs of our teams without too much homerism. The key word here, of course, is try. On today's episode, we're talking about the Rockets season opener. Sadly, losing in double overtime to Oklahoma City Thunder. We're also going to touch in with the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, that's another loss in the books for us Houston sports fans. Monday Night Football in the late show. On Monday Night Football, the Houston Texans struggled to get the offense going. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about your Houston Astros. I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers, check out. Wow, having one already, folks. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans out there. If any of you Buster Bluths know the references I'm making here, perhaps you're a Milford man. Thanks for being here. Check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my mumbles here. We're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me as always. Longtime listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. Me, I've got the cool, reasonable takes, kinda. I'm reactionary to the reactions, I guess, is the way you could put it. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hot takes in the sports world nowadays. There's a lot of people like me. They're talking heads. They're just people who talk and go on a podcast and they say crazy things. So I try to be a little bit more reasonable. I'd like to remind people that there are bigger problems in the world. Let's save our anger and furor for those issues. We've elected to be sports fans, so let's try to enjoy it at least the best we can. We're talking about some two big losses today on the on the podcast, but that's why you come to Space Cadet. You come to Space Cadet's podcast when you're in your emotions. If you're in your emotions, I'd like to wish you good day, mates. I'd also like to do my vocal warm-ups for once. Actually get out there and do my tongue twisters before I hit record on the podcast. But alack, I haven't. That's why you come here, folks. You come from the cool, reasonable takes. You come from me mumbling my way through a podcast. Just getting tangential. Getting off topic. There's no rails on this podcast, really. To say it's off the rails would say that there's any kind of structure or any kind of linear thought I'm trying to have in the first place. We're talking about our Houston sports teams today, so let's get to it. We got three of our teams to talk about, so let's get to the Houston Rockets. Last night on Peacock, the return of Round Ball Rock. It definitely, I felt the nostalgia. I'm making my jokes. I'm being a little silly because that's what their marketing campaign was really leaning on, is the return of Round Ball Rock. I gotta admit though, I was nostalgic for it. It did bring back a lot of memories. So I guess good on them. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I thought that there's so many things happening with NBA on NBC, but to make the whole thing about the branding being back is I thought was a little interesting. But I guess it worked. I tuned in. I have Peacock. I didn't have to take to the open waters of piracy to find that game. But I'm vamping. I'm struggling to get to the point here because it was a tough loss. And by that I mean we really wanted to win the game. The players obviously did. I know the fan base definitely did. And when you want to win the game that badly, when you see the players want to win that badly, when you see them competing not just through 4 quarters but through 2 overtime periods, when you see them competing to the very end, you want them to get that W. They lost this game 124 to 125. If you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. It was an incredible basketball game. The Houston Rockets, the last couple seasons, have become must-see TV for those of you who are old enough to remember NBA on NBC. If you're a geriatric millennial like me, you know what I'm talking about. But the Rockets have been must-see TV more and more as the seasons have gone on, the last couple seasons, and this game was appointment television. I mean, this was like the Breaking Bad finale. You should have seen this. If you haven't seen this, go find a way to watch this game. It was incredible to watch, but it just did not end up in the Rockets' favor. Let's look to the box score real quick. Alperen Sengun in this game was nuts. When I first watched the game, I watched the game, well, I watched the game fully once, and then I went back and watched, kind of an edit, to try to get to just the meat of the game, if you will. So I went back and watched part of it, and that was because, we're kind of getting ahead to the end of the game here, but that's okay. In the last overtime periods, in the last plays, there were always moments where I'm like, okay, Coach Ime Udoka, he's gonna draw something up. Maybe this will be for KD, maybe Alperen Sengun as a secondary option. It really seemed towards the end there, they were looking for plays for Alpi. They were looking for Alperen Sengun, and I do have to admit, when you go back and watch it, Alpi was him. He was amazing in this game. He just kind of slowly, sneakily just had almost a 40-point game. He had 39 points in this game with 7 assists and 11 rebounds. He was 5 of 8 from the 3-point line, 12 of 24 on his field goals in 49 minutes. Alpi was amazing. Coming off Euro basketball, coming off the Euro Cup, after getting bounced from the playoffs last season, it looks like Alperen Sengun is ready to make a step into the next tier of NBA superstar. He was impressing Durant. He was impressing the fan base. He looked like he was making the Oklahoma City Thunder very mad. There was on Reddit, the Oklahoma City Thunder Reddit page had a Rockets, hate on the Rockets upvote party because they obviously were not happy seeing the level of competition out there. We almost spoiled their banner ceremony in Oklahoma City Thunder. It was in Oklahoma City, I should say. It was really close. Let's look at Kevin Durant's line here. Kevin Durant, he looked good. He looked good. There were moments. There are some moments, particularly a moment where he tried to call a timeout, or allegedly. Look, I don't want. I don't want KD coming for me. Let's be very clear on this podcast. We're a friend of KD here. There was almost a Chris Webber moment. Chris Webber said it was almost a Chris Webber moment. Kevin Durant, it looked like, was making to call a timeout at a point in the game when the Rockets were out of timeouts. Allegedly, okay. The refs didn't see it that way, but a lot of people, were saying that looks like some posturing as if you're making to call a timeout. Obviously, that would have had a huge effect on the game. If that would have been called that way, the Oklahoma City Thunder could have got some shots for the technical foul. But that didn't happen, okay? Look, we're not going to be one of those podcasts that's already coming for Kevin Durant. All right, look, I don't want to get into a comment argument with Kevin Durant because I made some kind of joke. Okay. No, I love Kevin Durant. I do love the fact that he claps back at people online. He doesn't just let you say whatever you want about him. I actually respect that. And actually, if you've been watching Starting Five on Netflix, part of it too, I think, is just trash talking. I always say, look, I'm not a journalist. I'm a comedian. That is literally what I do. It is one of my professions. I'm a joke writer. I'm a comedian. I'm somebody who gets in front of a microphone and I talk for a while. I make jokes. It's one of my skills. And one of those things that when you have that skill, one of those things you do is you kind of roast people. You make jokes. You kind of take people down sometimes. And I think there's a lot of people out there that moonlight as talking heads, as podcasters, as commentators on the NBA. Anybody can do that now with the internet. So some people go out there and they're able to give it, but they're not able to take it. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm not scared. I make jokes, but I'm not literally. It would be amazing for me if Kevin Durant actually engaged me on something. So I'm not. I actually do appreciate that. I love that, and I do think that while he is defending himself and at times, and there are sometimes it seems like it's a little, he's. Maybe it's a little personal, but I do think it is, at the end of the day, kind of like roast comedy, kind of like smack talk on the basketball court. And there, I think he was raised in that kind of environment. I was raised in a very trash-talking environment growing up. Not my family. My family was amazing. Just for those of my family members who listen to this podcast, it wasn't from the family. It was from friend groups. It was from school. So I understand and respect that. And I know sometimes you're taking someone down a little bit out of being funny and being friendly. You're not actually trying to devastate them or hurt them the way people can do on the internet nowadays. So I do think it's a bygone thing. So let's just look at Kevin Durant's line real quick. He had 23 points in this game with 3 assists and 9 rebounds. He was 9 for 16 from the field. Unfortunately, he was 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. But it was still a solid game. There were some moments there where you could tell that, like obviously the 0 for 4 from 3, not quite gelling yet there, but that's just, it's like the first game of the season. 0 for 4 isn't the end of the world. I do think people are already trying to poke holes in Kevin Durant this early. I thought it was good. They were depending on Alpi for some offense towards the end of the game. I mean, it's the first game of the season. Kevin Durant played 47 minutes in this game. You're trying to limit some of his workload. He's a veteran player where we want him to have some health this season. So it's good that they're depending on other people and not just depending on Kevin Durant. Alperen Sengun looks like he's a man that can be depended on. Now, it's tough when they just needed one more shot in a game like this, but I do like where this is headed. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about some more Houston Rockets, talk about your Houston Texans. We'll be right back.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. Welcome to those of you who start listening to the podcast at odd moments. We are talking about the Houston Rockets here on the podcast. We just got done talking about Kevin Durant's line, talking a little bit about the offense and the dependence on Kevin Durant, if you will, going into this season, with Jeff Green gone. With Jeff Green. Apologies, Mr. Green, to both of you. With Jalen Green gone. I was just looking at the box score. Saw Jeff Green's name there, and just a slip of the tongue, if you will. But with Jalen Green gone, with Dylan Brooks gone, with Fred VanVleet injured, there's more of a spotlight than there normally would be on Kevin Durant. Look, Kevin Durant comes to your team, there's going to be a big spotlight on him to create, on him to be the focal point of your offense. But I think what really made me happy to see is, one, I was hoping that Kevin Durant wouldn't be like, okay, everybody get on my back. I'm the alpha dog on this team. Everybody fall in line. Cause I didn't want to see that, because he's getting older and we're trying to shepherd younger players into learning some of those, being responsible for those big shots in the end of games. Potentially Alperen Sengun, potentially Amin Thompson. Jabari Smith Jr. had some big moments in this game. So I didn't want to see Kevin Durant show up and be like, all right, everybody give me the rock immediately. So to me, seeing the fact that the Rockets didn't completely depend on Kevin Durant in all offensive situations in big moments in this game was a relief. I don't know. Do you think I'm being absurd here? Because I honestly think, if it's a situation where you give Kevin the rock in every situation there, it's getting the offense to depend on him. It's getting the offense to say, okay, clear out. We're going to do Kobe ball. We're going to do a bunch of ISO. We need this team to get comfortable taking big shots in the big moments and creating offense in those big moments. So I liked to see that they were looking at Alperen Sengun in these big moments. I love to see Alperen Sengun taking those 3 points, keeping the Rockets in the game, getting some momentum for the Rockets back in big moments, multiple times in this game, and ending with 39 points. I was happy about that. I mentioned Jabari Smith Jr. Let's look at his line. He had 16 points in this game. I should also mention really quickly before we stop talking about Kevin Durant, he also fouled out. But it was good to see him take the lead on, D'ing up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a big moment there towards the end of the game. He fouled out with 2.3 seconds left in the game. I might be a little off on that. I apologize. Remember, I'm a comedian. But he apologized. No, I apologized. Kevin Durant fouled out with just seconds left in the game on a big defensive moment. It's just how it goes. I'm not saying that to, I honestly think, at the end of the last possession, we were without Amin, we were without Kevin Durant, but it still felt like we could win those games and still felt like we were competing. So that was good. But moving on to Jabari Smith Jr., he had 16 points in this game, 5 rebounds, and he was 2 for 6 from 3-point, 7-15 from the field. He had a big moment to kind of in overtime, hitting a big shot off of the baseline there, I believe. It was good to see Jabari Smith just really locked in this game. It felt like, having some big moments offensively, and just the tenacity from our wings. Just really, it's good to see. It was such a good defensive game between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. It was good to see our guys show up for it. Amin Thompson played this game, but unfortunately, towards the end of it, really started to deal with some cramps. He was benched for Reed Shepherd towards the end. But I think that was if Coach Ime Udoka had his lineup set and locked in, I believe Amin Thompson would have been in there in overtime over Reed Shepherd, and maybe it would have been a little bit different. But after 39 minutes in the game, Amin Thompson dealt with cramps. He dealt with some cramps, last season too. Hopefully this is not going to be a nagging injury thing. Hopefully we could depend on Amin to eat a lot of minutes, honestly, because we're going to need him to, especially when we do this quadruple big lineup like the Rockets had that night with Steven Adams, Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Kevin Durant, and Amin Thompson as your starters. Amin Thompson had 18 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. He was 0 of 7 from 3-point, 8 of 17 from the field. There were moments where it really looked like that shot, that jumper looked a lot more threatening than it did last season, to be honest. I know 0 for 7 isn't exactly going to get people excited, but, he looked more of a threat. It looks like he can shoot some jumpers as opposed to just, kind of give him some space, make sure you clog the lane when he has it, guard the passing lanes. So we need Amin Thompson to be more of a traditional point guard this season. So he's going to have to be more comfortable taking some of those shots if that's what they're giving him. So, we'll see. Obviously, we're hoping for some better three-point shooting, but the three-point shooting in this game really came from Alperen Şengün. It was so good to see. Another thing of note, Tari Eason, he wasn't able to get a extension or his contract figured out with the Houston Rockets before the deadline this week, so he will be a restricted free agent going into the offseason next year. And, he kind of had a bit of a tougher game in 22 minutes this game. He had 3 points. He was 1 for 4 from 3-point, 1 for 6 from the field, but he did have 6 rebounds and only had 1 personal foul in this game. So, we are watching him. We are hoping that he can, maybe this contract thing will set a fire under him where he can have an amazing year, have some growth on the wings. I do think he kind of wants a bigger role maybe on a team. It did seem like the Rockets, I read, offered him a $100 million extension, and he declined. But also, remember, I'm a comedian. This is what I read. I'm not saying that I have a source. That reporting could be wrong. It was hard to get. It's hard to know sometimes, and some of these people that are credited journalists, when they have speculation and rumor out there, it can be debunked weeks later sometimes, or even days later, or hours later, so I'm just saying, look, that's not my source. I'm not trying to say that, but we are, watching Tari Eason this season. Clint Capella came in this game for just 8 minutes. It was a short bench. Only 9 players played in this game. A lot of did not play, coach's decision in this game, but it felt like a playoff game. It really did. Josh Okogie was fun. I think he's going to be a nice defensive stopper coming off the bench. He really did look comfortable in his first game as a Rocket. It looked like he's been here and part of the Stay Ready crew for years now. And unfortunately, the last player we're going to talk about, Reed Sheppard, he did have 28 minutes in this game, kind of the sixth man off the bench. He had 9 points with 4 assists and 2 rebounds, going 2 of 7 from 3-point line, 3-point, and 3 of 11 from the field, I should say. It's tough because we want Reed to grow. We like the tax man here at the podcast. We are rooting him on, but some of it just he looks tough defensively right now, and I think that's just. When you have like an A+ defensive tier team like the Houston Rockets, it takes one guy to kind of like be like, oh, he looks a little uncomfortable in his positioning, or he looks like he's looking around to figure out where he's supposed to be or who he's supposed to guard, or he looks lost. So I think hopefully a lot of this can get better as the season improves, as Reed Sheppard's getting more comfortable out there. But yeah, there was some tough looking times for Reed Sheppard in this game, and hopefully it will just continue to get better instead of teams just hunting him down and making his night tough. We like Reed Sheppard. we're hoping that this just gets better, and it's not like Bryce Drew or Matt Maloney. And look, we like Bryce Drew and Matt Maloney on this podcast. They serve a purpose. They had minutes. There's minutes for players like them. But for this season, without a true point guard on this roster outside of Reed Sheppard, truly, Aaron Holiday maybe, but like all I'm saying is like Reed Sheppard is going to have big minutes on this team in big moments. Amen Thompson goes down with an injury. Reed Sheppard's in there. So we're gonna need Reed Sheppard to figure some of this out. And obviously he's a competitive player. He wants to do it. We're not accusing him of anything. We're just saying we want to see where that goes. Tough game, folks. Tough game for your Rockets. I really our next game is on Friday against the Detroit Pistons. But while it's tough to not get the win, it's tough to walk away from that game 0-1. It's encouraging to think about how good this team is actually going to be going forward. I really think this is going to be if this team could stay healthy, and I'm saying that because it's been a tough season as a Houston fan so far with your Astros and Texans. But if this team can stay healthy, I really think it's going to be a fun season. It is going to be must-see TV all season long if this team can stay healthy. Let's move on to talk about your Houston Texans. Unfortunately, they lost 27-19 on Monday Night Football. Houston Texans are now 2-4 on the season. It was not fun. It really was not fun. And I think the reason why is we talked about it on the podcast. We were hoping that this whole bye week situation was going to be good for the Texans instead of hampering them when they maybe have started to get on an offensive roll. Unfortunately, it seemed like the extra time and preparation for the Texans offense really did not lead to the results that we were hoping for as a fan base. 19 points, but I think only one touchdown from the offense. Woody Marks, Stroud passing to Woody Marks in the fourth quarter. I think there's nothing that I could say that is really going to be different than what anybody is saying to make fun of the Houston Texans offensive coordinator. They even during real time they were like questioning some of those offensive play calls. The offensive line at times is back to looking a mess. Titus Howard, I believe, used the word complacency. Complacent, they're being complacent. And I don't know. I think you hear the coaches talk. They seem to be pretty fired up. And then to hear that the offense was, kind of lackluster and complacent. I don't know. That was just one man's opinion, obviously. I think, I don't think he was trying to throw anybody under the bus or call anybody out. But, when you see an offensive performance like that, it's a struggle to watch. In this game, C.J. Stroud was 23 of 49, 229 yards with one touchdown, one interception. He took on 3 sacks with a 59 quarterback rating. On the ground, they just got 56 rushing yards as a team. Passing yards, they had 229 as a team. But it seemed like this team kind of needs to get the running game going a little bit to find some kind of success in their play calling. They couldn't get the running game going, obviously, so that's a huge red flag for the offensive line. But if you can't do that, then you kind of need to get creative and mix up your play calling, and it just didn't look like they ever really figured out something. It didn't seem like they tried to to mix it up or change the game plan, or if they did, it didn't seem like any of the answers they were trying to come up with truly helped. And that's tough to think about, and because this Houston Texans team obviously has talent. It obviously has a really good defense to stellar defense at times, and it just seems like this opportunity that the Texans have had to kind of make some noise in the playoffs, to potentially, get to their first Super Bowl one day. It seems like this opportunity is slipping through their fingers. They are going to have to solidify this offensive line, protect C.J. Stroud, get some push so they get their running game established so that their offense actually can be executed a little bit closer to the way that they are trying to design it. Or they just need to figure out what works for this offense. It's, we've seen C.J. Stroud succeed, and now we're seeing him struggle. And it's just, there needs to be some change, or there needs to be some consistency in this offense. We have seen it work. So can we get it consistent? If we can't get it consistent, then can we change it? That's kind of what we're looking for here. We're looking for that We're going to see how much flexibility Nick Haley has as an offensive coordinator. And I do not think, based off of the way the Texans, the head coach DeMeco Ryans was talking about it, I do not think they're going to be getting rid of their offensive coordinator midseason because it's DeMeco Ryans' idea. It looks like they're kind of doubling down and trying to stick with what they got. But this offense really needs to show some signs of success, and this team really needs to get some W's if this coordinator wants to keep his job, because I don't know how the McNair family and how much the Houston Texans fan base will riot if this offense continues down this path and they continue to lose games. We'll see. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come up back on the other side with a little bit more Texans, a little bit about the Astros. We'll be right back.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. It's the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your irreverent host, Paul Salazar Jr. We're still talking about our Houston Texans having a lackluster, complacent game against the Seattle Seahawks. The only highlight from that game was watching Mariners fans in the crowd realize that they're not going to the World Series. That's sad. That's sad when the only highlight of this game for me was just straight up being a hater. I don't know, maybe Danico Autry's block kick. That was a highlight. Yeah, I like to see my guy Woody Marks get in the end zone, I guess. There was some minor highlights outside of the hate, I guess. But we're talking about our Houston Texans offense and the struggles of it. It was rough. And yeah, this was a game. Look, I watched this one. This one I had to kind of take to the open seas, if you will. I had to watch it on a very laggy connection. Look, here at the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, we do what we have to do to watch as many games as possible. But I did watch the majority of this after the game, believe it or not, late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, if you will, even over here on the West Coast. Nico Collins had a tough game. He was targeted 10 times, had 4 receptions, but only got 27 yards and was lost to an injury. We're hoping that he comes back okay, that concussion protocol and his health is safe to bring him back to the game quickly, and concussion protocol isn't too long. Dalton Schultz really had a big game in this one, getting 9 receptions with 98 yards. Obviously, just CJ needing some kind of receiver. It was good to see Schultz have a good game there. But it was a tough one. Jalen Knoll had a big game in this one as well. Sorry, he had 4 receptions for 77 yards. And a lot of fans, I should say, are starting to advocate for Jalen Noel to get more time here. Obviously, with Nico Collins potentially being out, with Christian Kirk being out for this game with an injury, and kind of having some injury issues already. Braxton Berrios just coming back from injury. We're trying to figure out what receivers we want to use in this offense, and a lot of fans are saying we want Jalen Noel. Sorry. And he really has seemed like he's ready to play in the NFL. He's just ready to go. And I get it. I think perhaps this young man is ready. But do you think just that one thing changes the Texans' offense? Because I really do think it comes down to line play more than anything right now. It's sadly, we talked about it off season about the offensive line, and it does look like it's going to be a main storyline going into this season, trying to see if that line play can get consistent. I don't know. The Texans now play the San Francisco 49ers in their next game on Sunday, and then on to Denver and Jacksonville before returning home in November for a Tennessee Titans game. So this road trip is going to test the Texans and see if they actually want to compete in the playoffs this season. They're going to have to show up for all three games. None of them are going to be particularly easy or straightforward, I believe. They're going to have to compete. They really are. We're going to have to see what their mettle is here. Moving on to the Houston Astros. We don't have a lot of good news in this one, folks. But moving on to the Houston Astros, they did sign Nate Pearson to a 1-year Major League Baseball deal. Already making moves. He's a former first-round pick of the Toronto Blue Jays. He signed a $1.35 million contract with the Houston Astros. He's a 29-year-old that played in the Chicago Cubs minor league system last season. And folks, is this Hayden Wesneski Jr. that we see coming to our team? Because this is a minor league player that obviously older minor league player, bouncing around a little bit, having mixed results, mixed success, hasn't really caught on with the league yet, but it seems like the Astros are actually bringing him on to compete for a role in the starting rotation. So I think this is just kind of, that's what it reminds me of. It looks like Dana Brown is trying to find value pitching wherever he can, and it's something he's done well. From Ronel Blanco to Hayden Wesneski, we even a lot of the arms in the bullpen last season. I'm very curious to see why they needed Nate Pearson this early. I think he's going to be he could be a big thing for the rotation going forward, especially if, and most likely when, they're losing Framber Valdez to free agency. Now, I'm not saying Nate Pearson is going to be La Grasa, in Nate Pearson, the fat. No, I'm not saying that he's going to be just as good as Framber. I'm just saying they are trying already to find value pitching in their rotation. He's going to have to compete with some people to get into that rotation. Obviously, Hunter Brown, Christian Javier, Lance McCullers Jr., Spencer Getty, Colton Gordon, A.J. Bluebaugh, and let's not forget Jason Alexander, and at some point Ronel Blanco, maybe even Luis Garcia are coming back from an injury. But we'll see. Nate Pearson, at least, is value pitching that Dana Brown has found. Other things in the baseball world, I want to give a shout out to Martin Maldonado. Machete retires after 15 seasons in the major league, in the major leagues, I should say. And he wants to manage in the future. Is this a catching coach we can get for next season? For real. A lot of people have been making jokes. Oh, Martin Maldonado as a hitting coach of the Houston Astros. LOL. Yeah, good joke, my guy. He might actually be a decent hitting coach, and not because he was a great hitter, but because he was such a weak one. He probably had to continually game plan to have strong hitting performances, but obviously, that's not going to be a signing that a lot of people are going to take kindly to, no matter what fan base you are. But I'm just saying, bring Martin Maldonado in as a catching coach, as a bench coach or something. I'd love to see that. But Machete, we've always loved Machete on this podcast, and we just wanted to shout him out. We love you. Enjoy retirement, and it'd be really cool if you got to be a manager. Not manager, necessarily. I'm not trying to get rid of Joe Espada. Please, calm down. Calmate. Not one of those Espada haters, but I'm just saying it'd be nice to have him on the coaching squad in the future. And folks, the World Series, believe it or not, there is baseball still going on, and the World Series matchup is set. It is going to be the Toronto Blue Jays, a.k.a. the Canadian Astros, against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Folks, obviously, with our boy George Springer on the Blue Jays, with our distaste for the LA Dodgers, their ownership group, and the things that they like to invest in, of course we're going with the Canadian Astros on this. Well, it's gonna be a tough one for them. These Dodgers are, they pretty much were crowned to win the World Series on day one of the season. And while the baseball season has been long and windy, they've had a lot of downs, but they've had a lot of ups, and it never really seemed like they were not the favorites to win the World Series. And that continues to be the case. We'll see how the Blue Jays do. Best of luck. But this is going to be a battle, and it definitely could be LA's year yet again, and it hurts me to say that. But with that being said, with me sadly admitting that a team that has spent way too much money is actually good, that's going to do it for this episode, folks. That's going to do it for this man. I can't get through it. Goodness. That's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We are a small podcast and only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you. So please share with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. Reach out on social media if you have any opinions on Nate Pearson. If you know what receiving order the Houston Texans should go with. Or if you know how to help our boy Reed Shepard just really carve out more minutes and become a true point guard for this Houston Rockets team. Let me know on social media at Space Cadet Sports, or you can call in and give me your opinion on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports, where you can leave me a voicemail, give me your take. If you're not too crazy, I'll respond to it, and if it actually is coherent and somewhat appropriate, it may even make the podcast. Please check out the Substack at spacecadetsports.substack.com. That is the official home of the Space Cadet Sports podcast. Give us some comments there. Let us know what you think. Become a subscriber. We're going to get like 95% of our content for free by just becoming a subscriber on Substack. There is some stuff behind a paywall, but that's just because I'm trying to give some kind of benefit to our premium subscribers, and you don't have to be a premium subscriber. It's a really low fee that just helps support the podcast, helps me honestly pay for the little things that it takes to keep this podcast running. It does take a lot of time to do the things that I do, and it is a passion project, but it's nice to have some money supported. So if you'd be so kind to support that, we'd appreciate it, but it isn't necessary. We're trying to build the community for the sake of that, and we want to know your opinions, want you to be there on the Substack. And if you're like, I can't do the Substack thing, but I still want to support, you can help me by buying some merch. That's right, we have Don't Sleep on Houston basketball merch. We have Carla the dog hats and H-Town Blue. You can go to paulsalazarjr.net. You can find the store there and look at some of the podcast merch. We have more stuff and more Carla the dog stuff coming up soon. If you've gotten this far, You obviously like me on some kind of weird level. You can find me on social media making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar Jr. You could also find paulsalazarjr.net because I'm nothing but net. You can find my other Substack where I write about things like what it was like building a shed. Believe it or not, that is a comedy article. And all kinds of other nonsense if you're nasty. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos, vamos, Houston.
Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space.